It's all good, yeah?
Yeah, good on you. Is it all recording?
Yeah, it's all recording.
Do you
Well,
need a clap to sync it?
I guess you can do that. Well, after several hours of setting up and probably working around, this is your boy Mega Black, and I'm here with the one and only Richie Branco. It's a pleasure to meet you today. How are we today?
I'm very good, thanks. Pleasure. Great to meet you too, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here in Melbourne. It's actually quite surprising you actually would come down here for a considerable amount of time. I never even thought you would even come down to Melbourne in the first place. You know, it's only been like an hour away from me, and so far, what do you even think of Melbourne as in general? Just give us your opinion about Melbourne.
I love Melbourne. Should I hold this or do you want
Sure thing.
Yeah, I love Melbourne. My sister lives in Melbourne now,
Yep.
so I came down last year for her wedding, and I've spent a little bit of time in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
I always think this is a really beautiful city. The weather could be a couple degrees warmer, a little bit more sunshine, and then I'd probably live here. So I think, but maybe if I lived here, the city's so good that I'd just get used to it anyway.
Yep.
But I do love it, and I actually did a road trip down to Melbourne last week.
Last week.
Yeah, which was really fun. So the drive is beautiful if you ever get a chance to do it.
Where did you go around with the Melbourne for the road trip specifically?
We drove through inland, not via the coast, and went through Beechworth.
Yep.
And Gundagai and a few of those towns. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, because I usually go to Melbourne at least once a week nowadays, and that's mostly because of a commitment that most of my viewers may not even know, but some of them may know if they actually follow me on Instagram. Just only because I would go out to just places like Melbourne. One time I go out to Clayton some point. That was for Model Expo, but that was like ages ago. And sometimes the furthest I'll go nowadays is like near where Thornbury is like a state, whereas it's basically there's a collectible shop there, but also there's a little arcade that has this one game that I usually play because of how hard it is to get by. And
What's the game?
Initial D free, the arcade stage free, and it's a very rare game, but that's mostly because that my friends have basically indoctrinated me to come by over there just to take a look out of my sick curiosity that I went there just because of the fact that it was pretty much hard to come by. And by that fact, I started driving around Melbourne because of that, and it's been like, it's also a bit of a nightmare as well. Now, if I had to be honest, would you compare it to Sydney? In terms of like Sydney versus Melbourne, how would you like critique that?
How would I compare them?
Yes.
Well, okay, it's obvious that we know that Sydney has better weather, but Melbourne has a great nightlife. We've got great art and culture here, good music, good live music at night. I think Sydney's nightlife has maybe taken a little bit of a downturn, so I think Melbourne has a bit more of a homely feel to it, I feel, you know what I mean? Like, it's a bit cozier. I feel like people are very friendly. I do love the beaches in Sydney and the harbour. Like, it's a very beautiful city, and I love the weather. When I lived in LA for 6 years, and I loved the sunlight there. So Sydney suits me with that sun. But like I said, my sister moved to Melbourne, and she stayed here ever since. She loves it.
Oh,
so.
okay.
And everyone I know who has come here to live has stayed. So, yeah, that's saying something.
That is a lot because, like, you know what? I constantly look at Melbourne as like it's like the new Blade Runner. I just recently watched that movie like ages ago, but it's like it's always the mental image that I had in my mind, just like thinking about Melbourne, and it's always It always reminds me of Blade Runner, just walking around. Yeah,
Like the fog,
all the fog, the neon lights, and it's just like
Yeah,
sometimes
right.
even in the winter time, it actually makes a lot of sense. You see all the
That's not
advertisements.
cyberpunk.
I don't know. I haven't met anyone that pretty much opposes against this, so it's pretty much a universal consensus.
That's mad.
Now, to start off, I'm basically a lot of our viewers at home don't actually know that Richie Branco is a musician, actually. I think we want to get over that for those that are listening at home as well. So, music has always been part of your lifestyle, basically. If you want to explain that to the audience.
Yeah, music was my first love, and it's my probably deepest love. It's got me through hard times, and it's the one thing that I feel like I can always rely on to make me feel okay. And it helps me, writing songs helps me kind of work through tough scenarios and situations in my life. And so I've written a fair amount of songs that are starting to come out, and I've been recording them, and I've released 3 this year, and I'm hoping to release another 5 and put them on a vinyl and get a limited run of 100 vinyls.
Wow.
The end of this year, yeah.
Alright, I would want to be. Actually, I've recently heard about the comeback of vinyl, and it's only because the better equipment you play it on, the better sounding it sounds, basically.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know if you had like a hi-fi setup that is pretty much top of the range, or would you say something that is much more? I wouldn't best describe it. Mid-range or something. Hey, how would you? Have you invested so much in vinyl mostly because of your passion for music?
I love this question. I've got a bit of a problem with buying speakers and headphones. I have a lot of headphones. My favourite headphones are nearly $3,000, and they're the Order Z ones, the LCD 3s, and I love those. I bought some speakers last year that are bigger than a fridge each. They weigh over... What are they weighing? Like 110 kilograms or something each. They come up to here on me.
Yep.
And they're about that wide and about that deep. There's 2 12-inch drivers in it, and a whole array of, I think, 4 tweeters in the top. I spent a lot of money on those. As soon as I hear something that I like, I kind of have to buy it, because music is so important to me that I want to just listen to all my favourite songs on these speakers. So I'm surprised they fit in my small flat.
Wow.
But I'm very lucky that they do. And but I've got a lot of I just recently bought my brother some speakers. They renovated their house, so I went to up the Central Coast and bought some speakers for him, which I love, and might have to take off him when I get my own house and want speakers in every room. I also love old tube amps, old Valve 60s stereo equipment. And I've got a lot of guitar amplifiers as well, maybe about 15 at home.
15. Jesus. Now thinking about that, do you have any preference for like brands in terms of like the speakers? Do you have like any sort of, as far as the audiophile thing going on, do you have like some sort of preference? Do you get like really nitpicky if there's like any sort of wherefore any noise, particularly for those speakers, the speakers that you purchased in the recent months?
Yeah, I get very nitpicky. I love solid state stuff, but it has to have a big high headroom, so high wattage to make sure there's no distortion. But then some songs suit different systems better. Like when I listen to Beach House, Dream Pop and stuff like that, I like the tube system because it's really kind of flowy and it's like water, and it chops off all the transients and it's really easy to listen to. But then like for 70s rock and roll and certain stuff, I like the transistor amps, which are a bit more tight and have a bit more colour in them. And it's the same goes when I'm recording my music. Like you get to choose between a Valve amp and a solid state microphone amp, and they both have their own sonic signatures, and I feel like solid state's a bit earthier and valves are a bit more like water, and you just got to choose the right one. But I do get picky. Like I turn off my fridge when I listen to music oftentimes because the hum annoys me and I just want to have a totally quiet room. And yeah, I get very picky.
Oh God, it's more advanced than me. You know what I do? I just end up having to rely on my car stereo. You know what I would listen to is a super Eurobeat, and it's like very fast paced. Like sometimes songs go about 150 beats per minute to 100 beats per minute, and you're driving on the highway constantly listening to this really fast paced music, and I feel like I'm going to be destroying the car stereo because of that. Yeah. I'm just like, oh no, I swear it's just making the car go faster because I wanted to do that.
It is. And also it's probably good for the speakers to get a bit of exercise, you know.
I don't want to pay for another pair. I've paid about 10.
I'm thinking of doing my cars. I just bought a car recently. It's an older car, and the sound system in it is not as good as my old car, and it's really killing me. So, but it's going to cost $1,500 to put a whole stereo system in, and it's that's a lot of money right now. So.
Which also means that you listen to your music lossless, right?
100%. So I have Spotify and Apple Music, but Apple Music actually has lossless. So I prefer Apple Music, and I run it always lossless. And it's closed.
Well, don't worry about that too much. If you reset the camera, that's fine. Yeah. Well, we had a little bit of technical difficulty. What was that one? Just lossless. That's right.
I was boring the camera, and the camera turned off.
Yeah.
Lossless. It's really important. I find, I 100% always listen to Apple Music whenever I want to listen properly. Like, I like Spotify because it shows it's good for checking out listeners and like who's listening, and more people listen. So like it's great to understand like how my music's doing and stuff. But in terms of listening, I'll either do like vinyl. I love cassette or lossless. So, and that's what's really important, is to have a way to get your phone music into your stereo system, and instead of Bluetooth, which isn't really lossless at the moment, although I think they're getting close with some Bluetooth, but I do Wi-Fi, so Apple Play, and it plays it across at like 2448 or 2496, and I have a Yamaha DAC that properly decodes it, so I'm getting wireless, lossless, and that's really important to me, because you don't hear that in the top end that you hear in the MP3s.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, MP3s are amazing for what they are, and it's allowed us to listen to music at the drop of the hat. Like, MP3s are incredible, but if you're really closely listening, nothing better than a lossless file. Or there maybe vinyl if you like.
Yeah, it's because like we started listening to a lot of stuff on lossless has basically become the new standard, and I basically started to feel the difference when I started getting into lossless files, particularly with a lot of the anime songs that are being compressed to FLAC files, and I was just like, this difference is just immaculate. And I'm losing my mind over this, because like this is the first time I'm hearing this. I'm like, I'm never going back to MP3 ever again, which in most cases you just can't go back.
I know the feeling, I really do. Once you hear what an MP3 does to the song, there's this certain like veil removed when you listen to the WAV file, and you just want that veil removed whenever you listen to music now. Like, just hits you a bit deeper, and I love that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, as far as that is concerned, and we might as well move on, because we could talk for several hours about music, and how that is pretty much our little foray, a little side hobby that I kind of really jumped myself into. Now, since music's kind of leadway into your acting career, I just wanted to be very clear about that. It was like, you used to do a lot of theatre in high school, right? So it's like, I wanted to know specifically how that experience transpired. More or less, like what was more or less the experience with theatre as at a young age?
So I did music theatre at school, and I got into it through music because I had to play. Well, I didn't have to, but I was asked to play guitar in a scene in a musical, and then that led to me being in the chorus, and then being in the next musical, and then being in the 12th Night, which is a Shakespeare theatre production, and God, that sunset's beautiful. Look at that. It's amazing. Yeah,
I can see it from here. It's just like, it's
unbelievable.
really distracting here.
Sorry.
I was like,
I can't do two things at once. Enjoy beauty and talk about theatre. So I guess my music got me into theatre, and then theatre got me into my acting course that I did for 3 years in Sydney, and then that led to getting an audition for Power Rangers. Well, that led to getting an agent, which got me an audition for Power Rangers, and then that was my first lead role.
There you have it, folks. That's how we basically got into Power Rangers. Long story short, but actually, I'm very curious about like how the audition works. Like at the time when you had to drive around, I remember at the Q&A you mentioned you had to drive 3 hours to the audition, right? So the atmosphere, was it really tense? Like, how many people were there just trying to get the same role as you were, do you think, if you remember correctly?
I don't know exactly how many, but there would have been a lot auditioning. Pretty much everyone in this age range, kind of, there was a lot of people. You try not to think about that when you audition, and you're just happy that you get an audition. and you just learn the lines, and you just think about the seed of it all, which is just acting and just trying to do that role and that scene the best you can, and trying to create something that's right. You know what I mean? For what that is. And if you just concentrate on that, the rest tends to take care of itself, because that's what you're doing. You're an actor. You're not producing it. You're not casting it. You're not editing it. You're not shooting it. You're acting in it. So just concentrate on the acting. You know what I mean?
It's the one thing, but except here, I have to focus on almost everything. See, I got that right there. Now, I never really told anyone this, but I had a family friend that also auditioned for the Power Rangers back in 2011. He works in marketing, and we refer to him as Noi. And he was actually planning to do an audition for the Gold Samurai Ranger back in 2011. Unfortunately, he didn't even get the role, but he did tell me about that story, that he did audition, and because he gets like so much free samples and shit from his marketing job, so we get so much stuff from him, just like to take home. It's just like, hey, have this free stuff. And it's like, because this just gets so much of it, we just end up taking it home. And it's so mad because like I realized that so many people have ambitions to basically audition for Power Rangers. And I guess you basically explained it very well. There's just like focus on the acting, and this is like that's all there is to it. Now there is a quick question I kind of want to ask. It's like, did they ever ask you to put on the American accent when you were auditioning for the first time?
Yeah, I did. It was all American right up until we did a table read in New Zealand. I was American. The character was meant to be American, and they told me, they said, "Oh, we really like your Australian accent. Do you want to try it like that?" And then I tried it, and they said, "We love it. It suits the character. Let's do it." But I think my American accent wasn't very good, and that was their way of kind of, working with my strengths, as opposed to, me trying to, as opposed to, like, they thought outside the box. And in the end, I think it worked well for the character, and it was a positive for me. At first, I was disappointed because I wanted the challenge of being American, and I wanted to be an American TV show because that's what I grew up watching. So I thought that was cool. But what's funny is, in the end, people have always come up and said, "I love that you had an Australian accent," and it worked well. So yeah, hats off to the producers and the directors for seeing that and working with what I could do instead of what I was trying to do. And I got a chance later to do an American TV show with an American accent when I was a little better at it. So it's okay.
How do you even do the American accent? Because every single time I try doing it, I can almost never even nail it down. So like, what's the technique of like getting that down, particularly for an Australian that wants to try getting down its American accent?
Good question. It's a lot of practice, a lot of practice, because a lot of it is muscle memory. Yeah, when you're so used to speaking in a certain way, there's shapes that your mouth and your tongue make that you're not used to making, so it can get tiring just to do it, just to do the R, the car. That actually takes, it's like working out at the gym. That's the basics. Your ear, you need to be able to hear the difference. One, this is a key that helped me. Whenever I watched American shows, I would imagine all the actors were Australians putting on American accents, and that allowed me to kind of get a point A and a point B to see the room I had to travel to make it work. If I just saw them as Americans, it was kind of like this floating target that I could never kind of reach because I didn't know where I was and where that was. I couldn't bridge that gap. But as soon as I imagined like Joe Pesci or De Niro was an Australian, and then they're like doing an accent, like that, to me, I was like, oh, now I can kind of see the distance I have to travel to get to where I need to be. So that was a way of kind of hacking it and it made more sense to me like that. Also getting an accent coach. Like I had accent coaching before Chasing Life for weeks. And on every single script and every single line, I had accent coaching and someone going, "That's wrong, that's right, make it more like this." You know what I mean? And just practicing it and practicing it and practicing it.
Yeah. Now I was like, usually at home, I'll usually do watch a bunch of anime. Sometimes mostly abridged stops, and they do these really good impressions of a lot of the characters that have been pre-existing. So most of the time, I just end up like quoting a lot of these characters, and one of these characters is from the Dragon Ball Z abridged anime, and there's this character, Cell. He has 3 forms. He's like, I think the first form is like, I got a new body, and then the second form it goes to be like, I do that, it sounds a little bit like this. And then his final form is like, I know I sound perfect, and now I definitely have reached my final form. It's almost like that. It's like every single time I kind of watch it, I kind of understand, and the vocal tone of that. That's sort of a little bit of my little technique there, but that's mostly due to mimicking and imitating, even though that you probably, because of your profession, you've done it in a much more professional manner, I say the least.
Yes, but it's very similar. Yes, 100%.
Anyways, what do you even thought about the perfect Cell accents? What do you think of that?
Of what? Of which ones?
The impressions I just did.
Oh, they're great.
That's great.
You nailed it.
Oh no way! I would have thought about that. No, that was just strange. Just coming from you, that definitely means a lot.
Oh, mate.
Okay, so there's also, during the Power Rangers, I remember seeing a bunch of stuff from behind the scenes. There is this one tidbit that I wanted to go around, and it relates to a lot of the visual effects department. There was a picture of you circulating around that you were wearing a blue Mystic Force suit. Now, technically explain to the audience what was the purpose of that?
I'm pretty sure from memory, but I could be wrong, that we were doing green screen stuff, which is basically where there's a screen behind us that's green, and then they can key that out, they can make it disappear, and they can put whatever background they want on it, right? So it's like background replacement. You all probably know what it is now because you can do it on your phones, on TikTok and Reels and all that stuff. But back then, that's how they did it via green screen. Or blue screen. But they choose green screen because it's easier to light, because it's a lighter color and it costs less. So there's a problem there because my suit's the same color green, right? Which means my whole body would disappear once they key it out, right? So they had to put me in a suit that was a different color from that background that they cut out. And that's why they put me in the blue suit.
Did they ever make a blue helmet as well, or was it just a suit?
Can't remember.
Oh, that was definitely lost in time. That solves that issue. I kept thinking in my head, there must be a blue Mystic Force helmet for it.
There might be, but if you don't see one in that picture, there might not have been. But you know what? There probably was a blue helmet because the stunty would have done a stunt probably with that background. Yeah, there probably was. That would be cool. Imagine we could find that.
If we can only find it, it'll be one of the biggest holy grails, and everyone would just be like, crying. And you know what? I feel like that'd probably be my next goal, considering that I've almost hit my personal goals, if I had to say it at least. Now, with the behind-the-scenes stuff, which is like a lot of my fascination for that, and was there anyone particularly holding out a camcorder just like recording almost everything on set at the time you were doing a lot of work on Mystic Force?
Not that I remember. I don't even remember if we had an EPK or like a behind the scenes thing.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll get back. Second break. Honestly, I feel like I could get a new camera, but that's only because that I don't even have the money for it at the moment. Okay. Well, that's fine. But at the time, I was looking at a bunch of old behind-the-scenes footage stuff, and these people from the 1980s, they'll have like Video 8 cameras and sometimes 8mm film cameras that were just like really bulky. There's this one industrial designer, his name is Kazuo Oshii. He does a lot of the designs for a lot of the older shows for Super Sentai. And the reason why it was important because there weren't many people that were having these kind of technologies. Particularly Video 8 and VHS-C were just like brand new by 1988. But many DVDs that came out around 2005, you expect like people to have these kinds of cameras to even just at the conveniently. But even then, like 2005, not many people even had video cameras in their pockets. Like, did you even just a quick personal question, did you have like a video camera personally at the time time that was mostly pocket size, or was it like one of those big ones that were just like hard to carry around?
I had I had something similar to that one that nearly fell over. I had a little point and click, and it was a little Olympus camera actually, and that's what I took all my pictures on. I'm not even sure if it did video. I think it did video, but like at 480 by 240 or something like that, like a really low resolution. So you know what? I might have some video footage. Maybe I should dig it up and put some on Instagram at some point. I'd have to, of course, get permission from the other rangers.
Yeah, it's gonna take several hours to believe that much.
And everyone would be like, "What kind of footage? Where is that from?" Like it's so grainy. It's pixelated.
It's like 480 to 480. I mean, like most of those cameras at the time were about the same quality as you got, but it's like on analog tape.
Yeah.
So
I wish it was on analog, on film, but that would have been a whole other, you know.
I've only Video 8, but they stopped doing Video 8 such a long time ago, and it's like because it won against VHS. Long story short, but that seemed to be the case for most of it. Just thinking about that is like, do you have any like personal stories that you would like to share, like behind the scenes that you wanted to at least if you're allowed, whatever you're allowed to talk about specifically. There's one, if there's any moments.
I remember one moment really clearly. Faraz and I were being really competitive, and he was climbing a tree, and we were in this park, and there were these two massive trees, and they kind of touched branches up the top, like in a canopy, and I like bet Faraz like that he couldn't climb from one tree over another, and I'm talking like that would have been like 20, 30 meters high in the air. And he was willing to do it. And Faraz is like amazing, like really physically like fit, and like he could have done it. And he was up climbing the tree, and like I remember I remember like the director or the AD like saw him up there and was just like, "Get down." And I was so disappointed because I wanted to see him do it. I can't remember how much money I bet him. It was probably like $1,000 or something, enough for him to risk his life. But he was prepared to do it. It was actually amazing, and I would have loved to have seen it happen, but it didn't end up happening. But yeah, kudos for him for trying.
I would imagine you were in the background and just like telling him, "Do it!"
100%. Yeah, don't be a wuss. Do it. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it." And then no, he wouldn't. No. They didn't let it, for obvious reasons. Very dangerous.
Or when H&S public safety.
Yeah, but he had the guts to try. And that's what matters.
Oh yeah, that's speaking of which, since it was dangerous, were you on like union contracts at the time, or was it just like stopping you from doing it?
No union contracts here. That's why they shot it in New Zealand.
Typical Power Rangers fashion. I thought they would have changed over the years.
No, fortunately not.
No, it was only long ago they actually got the SAG involved
really?
by 1997, I think it was, and that was essentially a whole entire story that I personally do not have the cliff notes for, but I can't really get into it because I don't know the exact details about it. But that's from what I understand, because it was because one of the actors from Beetleborgs was casted into the movie Casper, and she played Jo for the first half of Beetleborgs. And what happened was that if she wanted to do Casper, she had to join SAG, and SAG was undergoing an investigation of Saban at the time, and they were also. And if she wanted to do that, she had to quit Beetleborgs, so they had to replace her actor like halfway through the show and make an excuse that she got like a whole entire makeover because of that. And I'm actually surprised, as like I would have thought that public health and safety with the unions and all that would help protect Power Rangers' image as a whole.
Yeah.
And I'll have to say that would you definitely recommend like getting an actor to join a union, and how would you promote that message?
I mean, that's a good question. I guess I can see both sides. I understand why they might not want to use a union, but being a part of SAG and AFTRA and MEAA in Australia, I mean, it's because that's how we get good rates in the States, and I got paid well on the shows I did there because of a strong union, and it's important to protect the actors so people don't take advantage of us. So I think it is good. I was told not to do Power Rangers by MEAA, but Power Rangers was still paying more money than Australian shows were paying me, so I made the decision to do it anyway. But, you know, these things are nuanced, and not one side is right and one side is wrong. Both have their reasons. But I would say, in general, unions, are good because workers need rights, and you got to band together and get what you deserve without also taking the piss.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. And I have to say that a lot because I do get told it's like you need to join in unions specifically for, I'd say the construction industry and particularly for acting as well, because mostly it's just like with the construction industry, it's just like you're holding like 10 kilos of glass and like in these high rises. It's like there's no way that you're gonna be paid less to do that kind of shit. And it's like why would you even intervene with that? And I was like. But then again, it's like with the acting as well. It's like the kind of work you're doing. You're doing stunts. You're doing like mostly just all your own long hours and that. And it's just like it's constantly frustrating as well, because at the time I felt like yes, they definitely need them right. They definitely do need their rights, and it's been ongoing even since the early 1990s when the show even started. And I've thought about this, like how many episodes were shot during like a single day?
Well, no. An episode would take about a week. A week to shoot for Power Rangers, yeah. Some shows are quicker, but a week's pretty quick. I mean, a lot of TV shows more do like blocks of 7 days. So Monday to Friday, then Monday, Tuesday, and then a new episode. 7 days is kind of a good amount. I mean, you'd want as much time as possible, but that's not always possible because of money.
Because I thought about this, because like you're having to shoot on the same location, and I remember specifically with Kyoraja, they will have to film a lot of these episodes out of order because they wanted to use the same location for multiple episodes.
Yes.
And I believe that would have been the case for Power Rangers, even though that the record store set is basically it's mostly a part of the soundstage, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Definitely.
That's why they have sets, Yeah.
Most of the outside sets, of course, it was in New Zealand. I don't remember. Could you exactly pinpoint where exactly it was? Mostly for those that want to basically create tour guides or anything like that.
I can't even remember where the studios were in New Zealand, but I'm sure they'll be pretty easy to find.
I guess so. I mean, it was like the outdoors. I mean, a bit of the outdoor shots as well, but I'm pretty sure that you might not remember those as well. But it's been such a long time.
It has been a long time.
It definitely has. No, I never thought about that. It's like 2006 wasn't okay. No, I'm thinking about this. That was 2 decades ago, or what? Almost 2 decades ago. We're almost 3 years from 2026, and I'm already feeling old. I'm already feeling the pain. I can't even believe it myself.
Yeah.
So, actually, there is a few things I wanted to pinpoint. Is that even after Power Rangers, it's just like, did people end up like recognizing you on the street, just like, oh my god, it's Xander? Did they just come up to you mostly, or is it just like pretty much every Australian actor is just like, oh, it lives down the street? I don't really bother them too much.
No, I don't really get noticed. Yeah, every so often, but not very much at all.
No. Only from the hardcore fans, just like today.
Yeah, and I got probably more noticed in USA when I lived there for being a Power Ranger than in Australia.
And that's a strange part, because I thought people would already recognize you, even though they constantly just like... There's not many people that talk about Mystic Force as much, but I'll tell you that much. It is a sleeper hit, personally, for me, even though I started doing a lot of the rewatch since then. And it was mostly because the stagnant amount of period when Channel 7 was broadcasting it, it would always be like a year later. So in 2007 we had SPD, 2008 would be Mystic Force.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It kind of worked that way. It was so strange to see it, but having to see you once again, it made me realize that you've done an excellent job of portraying Xander. And it's just like, wow, I never really thought that there wasn't many Australian actors that could actually allow themselves to put the Australian accent on, even for a Power Rangers show. So, with that, it was like, I got a few things in mind. Just like, you watched Margie Ranger during the ADR sessions, or was it mostly? It was mostly just, but you didn't watch it with subtitles, did you?
No, we only watched a little bit of it. Yeah.
So it was all like, there was no subtitles or closed captioning for your benefit.
No.
So the whole entire reason was to analyze like what exactly the setting is particularly for Mystic Force, and a lot of, and mostly whenever you're doing in the recording session, that's pretty much the only time you saw it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so strange because most people will be like, "Have you ever seen the original source material?" You constantly get that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. Every time someone asks that, have I seen Magic Ranger? Yeah.
It's like, because I only saw a little bit of Magic Ranger, but not very much because like it's a huge different beast. But at the same time, it's just like I'm also a very busy person, but I don't really have the commitment to sit down and watch this show particularly. I maybe have started watching a little bit of it, but I cannot. The contrast between your counterpart and what you play is surprisingly hugely different, so it makes a lot of sense. It's not the same. It's just not the same. It's just not. No, everybody's going to be complaining of like, well, when Power Rangers and Super Sentai are ever the same, sometimes they're not, and it's just like you can definitely see a huge difference when they're not the same, particularly with your acting skills and the way that you play the characters, and that essentially pretty much closes the book on me to basically get more appeal on Power Rangers than I think it normally would with Sentai. Now, I would have thought about that after you did Power Rangers, that you actually look for more work. Did anyone that was auditioning ask you, was like, I remember you from Power Rangers, or pretty much the same way that the fans would have, normal people would react?
I don't think so, actually. Yeah, I don't think many other casting people mentioned it much, yeah.
So they only recognize you from like the commercials and the show reels that you'll mostly...
Just from auditions, really, just that's where they would see me, I did hear that one casting agent did see me in a commercial that I did, like that was based on Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody for a hotel. They saw that, which I was fairly surprised about. So that's kind of cool, but I would never expect that. Yeah.
So like, coming back to Australia, it was like more or less a different experience from... Well, it was pretty much more or less the same in terms of like your acting adequate and just like how you would like pretty much focus your acting skills, say the least. My best way of putting it is that like, do you have like a different mindset when you're working with Power Rangers compared to something like Chasing Life?
It's a good question. The industry is a little bit different over in the States, in LA. It's probably a little bit more of a well-oiled machine, like things just run a little smoother, there's more money. As an actor, you're kind of looked after a little more. You have generally, I've only worked on a handful of productions in the States, so I can't speak to everything, and I'm sure there's productions that are dodgy, but the standard union productions look after you a lot more. You have your own, you have a stand-in, number one, so in Australia, you don't have a stand-in, so they're lighting you. Generally, like you're standing there while they're lighting,
yep.
Whereas in the States, you go in, you block, then you leave, and they have a stand-in who does all that. So you can kind of just save your energy for the shoot, which actually really helps. And you paid a lot more in the States.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot more in the States.
I love shooting in Australia, and there's a flip side to that, where in Australia everything's kind of laid back. No one takes it, like people take it seriously, but not too seriously. And there's less of a hierarchy, so everyone on set is a bit like more equal and just like respects each other a bit more, and there's less kind of like hierarchy of like these people don't talk to these people and these people don't talk to these people. I hate that. I prefer a set where everyone can just mingle and talk to everyone, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because I remember seeing a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff for Dance Academy for research. Even though I was grown out of it, like way back in 2013, I was already in like middle school, so I was like, I was way out of that age range to even watch it. At the time, actually, I stopped watching television at the time. I do apologize. I was like, I wasn't able to see about that. But I see that there was one snippet of behind the scenes, and everyone was so chilled back, and everyone was so relaxed regarding like what you were saying just before. And it was so strange to see. But even though it's just like just thinking about it. No, sorry. It was how many episodes?
No, it's just distracting.
It is a bit distracting, but at the same,
yeah.
I was just thinking about like Dance Academy for a moment. It's just like you were a regular on the show, were you?
I wasn't a regular. No, I was in. I can't remember how many episodes. I can't even remember. Maybe 2 or 3 or something.
2 or 3 episodes.
No, more than that.
I don't even recall. I think it was 2 or 3 according to your Wikipedia page. But
Was it? Okay.
maybe I don't know who edits your Wikipedia page, quite honestly. But even though
I
it's
don't know who does it either.
a bunch of stuff is fan curated, so God knows what's happened. The only way I can only tell you is that you actually tell me through this microphone. So I'll give you that much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As I was looking at, speaking of like the fan curated stuff, I was looking at, I should have asked you this earlier about, the episode Petrified Xander.
Yes.
And I was looking at the episode list where they basically taken a bunch of the counterparts. And it was like 6 episodes of Monster Ranger, but none of them have based themselves on the part where you basically grow into a tree.
Oh.
Yeah, so they don't even have that. That's the strange part. But also at the same time, it's like how many hours did it take to put on all that makeup?
Mate, it was intense. Like, I think it was like 4 hours.
4 hours?
3 or 4 hours, yeah.
4 hours.
Hours, yeah.
Oh my god, 4 hours.
I feel like that. It could have been less, but...
Do you feel restrictive and like just...
Yeah, you have wood all over your face.
Looks
Glued
like
to your face.
actual wood?
Yeah.
I thought they would just like use clay to basically mimic wood.
No. It was like real bark and stuff. So they put us like a suit on me, and then they stuck the bark to the suit, and then covered it over. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It was amazing.
Oh my goodness. It's like, I would have thought you'd have like spark in your eyes. It's just like constant. There's a lot of it.
I could hardly move or smile or anything. It's pretty cool though.
Did
It's
you?
worth it.
Yeah, I guess so. Wait, did you end up having hay fever after that, or was that just me?
Nah, that was good.
That's just always me. Always working in the backyard. Next day,
Yeah?
I'm just having hay fever because of
Yeah,
like
right.
all the pollen. Just like,
Punish.
yeah, that's basically my way of getting punished. I don't know if I even want to. I don't even know if I can even mow the lawn anymore at this point. Unless I wear a respirator, but that like seems to be the only way that I could even do it at this point. So my goodness, just you coming back to many conventions. When did you actually start coming to conventions, particularly for Power Morphicon there?
My first convention was 2007, the first Morphicon. And then I didn't go to one for a long time. And then I think my second one was like 2014. And I didn't know what it was really about. And I kind of rocked up and was like, oh, wow, this is not what I was expecting. And that was the beginning of it. And then ever since, I've loved them. Yeah.
So you basically just embraced Power Rangers at this point, and I know that most actors haven't done it, but do you have like a personal reason why you kind of really stuck with Power Rangers, particularly with your branding and even though your professional career as a whole?
Number one, just the fan base and the fans care about the show. They love it. They're authentic. We have great conversations, and I just feel the love from the fans, and I just feel how much like I relate to them in like loving something so much. Like I have it with my own personal shows and my music, and to me it's an honor like to come here and meet everyone and kind of share like this love, like and give them the perspective of what it's like from the actor, because your show means so much to so many people, and I think it's really nice for them to meet the person on the other side who helped made the show, and to come together. Like, I mean, I would love to meet the people who I grew up watching and listening to. So I think it's just a nice opportunity to do that, and I get to meet like the other Rangers and like see people I haven't seen for a long time, like other actors, and that's always fun too. And it's just it's always a fun weekend. I always leave being like, oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, we're having this fun conversation as well. Come to think of it, it's great talking to you, and just like, come to think of it, unfortunately, due to time, and most people were wanting to back up, and I'm pretty sure that Jezza wants to...
It's falling down around us. It's
yeah, it's coming too close. We could talk for hours if we wanted to, but unfortunately, we're on a bit of a time crunch. Any last words you wanted to tell the audience about you?
I just want to say thanks for watching and being such amazing kind of people and fans of the show. And I look forward to hopefully meeting you someday at one of these conventions. and chatting and getting to know each other and becoming friends. And really appreciate your time, and I've really enjoyed this chat. I'm sorry if I was a bit distracted just because like we've had trucks and cars literally driving past.
Oh,
us,
that's
so
absolutely
I'm
fine.
kind of like
Such mundane,
feeling
just
like they're gonna knock this whole thing down on it.
just such mundane scenery, just like going around. It's really hard to just
Great.
keep yourself.
You've done really well to focus.
Yeah, I was like thinking to myself, I know I can do this. I can keep going to this,
Yeah, good
like,
on you, mate.
and I really like to keep going. But like, unfortunately,
do it again.
we got
We'll do it
time to time. We will find the time to do it again.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you. Great meeting you. And for handles, it's Richie Branco on Instagram. As far as I'm concerned, if you go anywhere else, you probably find him by Richie Branco on his on Apple Music and Spotify for the easiest convenience. And do you have any plans to release any CDs and vinyls? Of course, you have plans for vinyls, of course. But more on that in the future. Probably follow him on Instagram just for that news, just so he can break the word that he's actually coming to fruition for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
This is Being Mega Black. Thank you for listening. Have a good night. Oh, we did it. Oh, 49 minutes. Almost 50 minutes. I have to cut this down.
You did good, mate. You did really well.
Oh, man. I was going to have it for it. I was expecting it.